Welcome back to the Rex Chapman Show with super dope, super cool Josh Hopkins, my homeboy. Episode 31. Who are some famous 31s, Josh?
You got to go with Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller. I got to go with my all-time favorite 31. University of Kentucky, Samuel Paul Bowie. Sam Bowie, baby.
Yes.
Boo.
Yes,
number 31.
We've had a great 31 on the show.
We have? Ferguson Jenkins, our Fergie.
Yep.
That is our Fergie.
Yep. Check out our places.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay.
You're just across from me right there. Hey, Rag, just show them we're in the same place.
Shut up, Josh. I'm on. I'm on.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
I saw last time you were set up in your place in Brooklyn. I was in my bedroom last time and I was like, looks like he's in my house. So today, as a surprise, I set up in the same sort of corner of my spot in Austin.
There's even a building in between the window. There's their pole. For people that don't know, people tease Josh and I because we're both pretty idiotic, and people tease us saying, "Well, if you both have half a brain, right half and left half."
Mm-hmm.
And Josh has recently moved to Austin. I've recently moved to Brooklyn, and apparently we picked
the same house,
and we wore the same hoodie today.
Yeah. Oh snap! This is great. Yeah, but it does look like we were just
mirror
with each ear over here. I put it up like this, a little show.
Oh, it's great.
Here we are. Perfect.
That's great.
You need to get you a Peloton, son.
That's right. Nobody cares but us. Nobody cares but us.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 31, buddy. By the way, book club. This week I did not manage to get to anything. I was moving and it was so I didn't. What about you? Did you read anything this week?
No, I don't like to read because it harkens back to all my insecurities when I had a hard time reading at first, and then my friends were faster than me, so it makes me feel bad about myself. So I don't read at all. So that's been book club. Okay.
Guest today is a former 11-year NBA center with the Wizards, Thunder, and Hawks. But maybe most importantly, he's a writer, host of The Rematch with Etan Thomas for basketballnews.com. But he's an author, the author of Police Brutality and White Supremacy, The Fight Against American Traditions. Details of police brutality and white supremacy are what I want to talk about today. And I not only want to welcome Etan. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
We've also got Raymond Santana, arrested as a young man, spent many years in prison, member of the Central Park Five. And Raymond, I've watched so much on you. I know Josh has as well. It's a real honor to have you here today. And I'm flattered that you would come on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Very humbling. Appreciate that.
So many questions. First, Etan, we both have similar backgrounds in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You're unlike many of the athletes in an NBA locker room. And I want to know when you started, at what age, and where did it come from? Did you have parents that were teaching you about world issues that maybe some of us weren't learning? At what age did you realize you had a real fascination and interest in justice?
It's interesting. It really started at such a young age. And I detail a lot of those stories in my book, in this book and in my previous book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism. And, in the story, I even went all the way back to 1989. I was a young cat then. And I remember, I was born in New York, but I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma when I was younger. My father got transferred with American Airlines, but I spent all my summers in New York. So, in the book, and when I was interviewing Raymond Santana for the book, it was like recapping where I was there when all of that happened. I was in Harlem. I talked about being in the park and seeing all the police come and start rounding up, Black and brown teenagers just immediately. Like I remember looking at the news and seeing Trump call for the death penalty and talking to my grandmother and my grandfather. And, my grandmother worked at Spofford, and she's telling me, so it started really young for me, understanding what's going on. And then just as I got older, I just started to write more and more about it. But yeah, I was introduced at a very young age to police brutality.
Raymond, if you don't mind, for our listeners out there, give us a 2-3 minute snapshot of your life, if you can, from the time you were born till now.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a lot. Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes. I need like 2 or 3 hours.
I know. Yeah. Just a little taste.
No, I'm a 14-year-old kid, never have no experience with the law, just trying to find himself and this traumatic, I go through this traumatic experience, for the next 20-something, 30-something years of my life. And it's been affected, constantly, it's at the point now that, it's so embedded in me. It's like, we have this saying amongst the 5 of us that, when we finally pass it, we go back to the essence that on our tombstone, the stigma and the label of the exonerated 5 or the Central Park 5 will never leave. And no matter how it is, and, you'll say, Raymond Santana survived by his daughter, wife, and children, there's always going to be that label of the Central Park 5. And this is just something that we didn't ask for, but it stuck with us. And we figured out how to make lemonade out of lemons.
Wow. Etan, what a topic, what a title of the book. Of all the things you could write about, why this?
Well, it's you have to have a certain passion about it and connecting with different people who have been victims of police brutality. Sometimes it's one thing to talk about it, but now let's paint the picture and show you people who have been actual victims. I interviewed Chiquisha Clemens, who was, beaten up by the police at a Waffle House. I interviewed Miss Laura Dean King, who was Rodney King's daughter. Botham Jean's sister, Tatiana Jefferson's sisters, Sean Montedosa's sister. So we're connecting with actual firsthand accounts who have lost loved ones, and they're all trying to do something to improve the situation where it doesn't keep happening. And that usually translates to changing laws. And it's so fascinating where, they've all experienced this. They've lost this loved one, or, they've been impacted by police brutality, but now they want to change things so what happened to their loved one or what happened to them doesn't keep happening. And being able to use the platform of a former NBA player and connecting with people like Rex Chapman, to be able to continue to promote that and assist and, lend our voices, lend our platforms to it. That was really why I wanted to put the book together. So I want to thank you for, allowing me to interview you for the book as well, because the voices are so important, because people listen to, quote unquote celebrities. That's so the way you're using your platform, and the way you're using your voice and, your Twitter followers and everything like that, you're bringing stuff to a demographic that might not have paid attention to it before, but they hear it because Rex Chapman is saying it. And that's, that's really special that you're doing it.
Well, let me ask you, you interviewed so many people for this and for your book. Are there any of the hours of interviews that stick out to you immediately, that where you were like, this is something I didn't expect was going to happen during this interview? Was any of those stick out?
Well, I mean, Raymond Santana was one in particular. I'm talking to him, and I've of course seen Ava DuVernay's movie. When they see us, I've seen it. I sat down and watched it with my kids. But in talking to him, the way that he described everything piece by piece, because you never really know how an interview is going to be before you interview someone. I reached out to ask him if to interview him for my book, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I would love to. Thank you for doing it." I was like, "Oh, y'all got to thank me. Thank you." You know what I mean? That type of thing. And so we start talking, and he's going piece by piece, detail after detail, and I'm just like sitting there amazed, and I'm just like, wow, like that. There's so much stuff that I didn't know, and I'm asking him about different particular parts that are in the movie, and he's going into more detail about it. and, you know, talking about how it actually affected him and how it impacted him. And, you know, you really see everything through his eyes when you're reading the interview in the book. And that one really, because I was there, like I have to go back to what we said in the beginning. I was there. I was in Harlem. You know what I mean? One of the things that I remember my grandmother being nervous about me with, because I was younger, but I was tall for my age. So I looked like I was a teenager, even though I was young. So I would have been one of the guys that they rounded up because I looked like I was a teenager. Wow. So it was like, it's personal. So when I'm looking at, and I'm remembering my grandmother, how she said, you know, Donald Trump put a target on every Black and brown kid in Harlem. That's what she was saying. Like, I remember her saying that. And people don't understand the significance of him doing that and how he made it where, you know, we were targets then. And so that interview, you know, with Raymond Santana, that was impactful. Like I had to take lay down for a little bit afterwards, you know what I mean? And decompress and everything. So that was a tough one.
Yeah. So Raymond, I'm sure we jumped right into this, but obviously, Raymond is a member of the Exonerated Five, the Central Park Five, that spent 5 years in jail before you were exonerated for a crime of a lady who was attacked in Central Park, liling, and put away because there was a fever amongst the society, Donald Trump spearheading it, that someone had to pay immediately, and you guys did. And what about when you talk to like Etan, what about when you are talking about that story, when you get to a certain part, what's a part where you get to where you know people don't fully understand and realize, like you get to the story and then this happened, and a part like where Etan was like, wow, I didn't even know that. Is there a certain part that people are always amazed by when you tell your story?
Yeah, there's the interrogation process. Like people, because everybody has a speculation that, if I didn't do it, I have nothing to worry about. I can talk to the police. They can't get me they can't coerce me and get me to say anything. And so, that part, is still obscure to people. They still don't get it. And for us, you gotta just show the whole dynamic. We were 14 to 15-year-old kids who never had no dealings with the law, right? Who never had no records or anything. And these were seasoned veteran detectives, 20 plus years on the force. This was the elite of the police force. This was the homicide North Detective Squad, because they thought that Patricia Miley had lost so much blood that it was going to become a homicide case. So they stepped in and they took over the investigation. So this playing field was unleveled to begin with, and for me, the stuff that we see on CSI, the good cop, bad cop, law and order, those are the tactics that are really used in these precincts, right? We know that there's this thing called the Reed technique, which is 7 steps on how you can get somebody to confess, right? And when the people who administer it and put this technique together, when they're questioned about what happens, can this also convict a innocent person, they'll sit back and tell them, we don't interrogate innocent people. And so these techniques are used to unlevel the playing field. And I think the most damaging ingredient is the level of unknown, not knowing what to expect, right? It's the experience. For me, I never had no dealings with the law, so I didn't know what to expect going in. All I knew that these were authority figures, right? And all they did was that they just broke me down. It's estimated that we was in those interrogation rooms for 15 to 30 hours without food, water, drink, and no sleep. And these are constant police just constantly pounding information into you. And it's done on a psychological level. For a 14-year-old kid, it becomes so embedded that even as a 48-year-old man, I can still talk about it today, word for word, and give you the dialogue. That's how embedded it is. This is stuff that we live with, and it happens every day all across the country. This is strategically done when you look at the budgets that are put behind the prison system, the budgets put behind police departments, everything that's attached, and that's the motivation. How it becomes slavery all over again. How Black and brown people are targeted because it has to feed a system that's run on billions of dollars, and it gives out, hundreds of thousands of jobs.
Raymond, I sit here and I just want to, Raymond, I want to cry for you. Josh and I talk about this a lot. And, we hear it's become, the privilege of white people. And when people hear that, when they hear me say it, I don't think people really understand the privilege that Josh and I have is getting to learn about racism. That's the ultimate privilege here. I'm sitting here and I'm having to try to put myself in your guys' position. Well, that's a privilege. I'm not in that position. I'm not ever going to be in that position. I'm a white guy. And so I'm trying to learn, and I can't thank you both enough, really, for being here today to share this, because, it's hard to talk about. I know when I go and talk about my past and some of the things that I've done and been through, it's always hard. When I get done, it's heavy. So thank you, Raymond, for doing this.
Yes, thank you for spreading this. I mean, and I'm not trying to be all shucks, but every time I've been somewhere and they said the police are coming, I've been like, good. Yeah. Like every time I've been like, I didn't. And I think as a society over the last 5 years, with everything that's gone down, we've opened up another door that, I've always considered myself a liberal, forward-thinking, but I didn't realize the systematic racism that was within the police department, which opened up a door to all of society. And I wouldn't understand any of this without what's happened lately and without people talking about it and explaining it. And it's done a service to our society and forwarded us. It's been bumpy and we got a long way to go, but it's because people shine a light on it. Both of you, thank you very much.
But let me also say this though, and this is the reason why, I wanted to interview people like Rex Chapman, like Sue Bird, like Breonna Stewart, Kyle Korver, white people in particular, Stan Van Gundy, for the book, because number one, there's a segment of the population that will only hear it if they hear it from white people. That's just reality. That's the way that it is. So hearing Rex Chapman talk about it, it just resonates differently. It's interesting because we're just passing, MLK weekend, and my daughter, we were watching Selma. My daughter Imani, because we talk about it all the time when it comes up. We was watching Selma a few years ago, and she talks about how, if you remember from the movie, they're protesting, they're marching, they're doing everything like that, and then they said, okay, we have to go reach out to the white clergy and everybody else to stand with us, and then they stood with them. Right, fast forward, and the police didn't attack them. They had a completely different reaction when they saw all the white people standing with them. Now, fast forward to right now, you see at the protest that happened after George Floyd, and you saw, and this was what, 2 summers ago, you saw white people standing with the black people and brown people in protest, and you saw the police have different reactions. You saw some white people even form a human shield in front of all the black protesters, and they weren't pepper sprayed. They didn't do the rubber bullets and do all the different stuff. That's a real thing. So going back to what I'm saying is having white allies and having white people that can speak to systemic racism, systemic oppression, call out the Trump administration, call out all those different things that Rex Chapman does, that Stan Van Gundy does, that Sue Bird and all of them speak to. It's invaluable, to be honest with you. And it encourages other white people to be able to have the courage to do the same. So again, Rex, I got to say, thank you for doing what you do. Like what I'm saying, I don't just mean it just to give you a compliment. It's important work.
The Rex Chapman Show, powered by Basketball News, is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easy way to play daily fantasy. It's daily fantasy simplified. Did you know that, Josh?
I didn't. I like simplified and I like fantasy.
It's just you versus the projected numbers, Josh. You can pick from 2 up to 5 players and an over-under on their projected stats for a single game and win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals, Josh.
I like the sound of this.
Well, Prize Picks allows mixed sports entries, offering every sport you can think of. Your Prize Picks entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You can take the over on Devin Booker's points combined with the under on Aaron Rodgers' passing yards if you want.
I like it.
You can receive a match on your deposits up to $100 using our exclusive promo code NEWS. That's promo code NEWS for an instant 100% deposit match on up to $100.
So hold on, that's program code NEWS, NEWS, like the news on TV?
That's promo code NEWS for an instant 100% deposit match on up to $100. Guess what else?
What?
Prize Picks has an award-winning, easy-to-use mobile app available in the App Store and Google Play. Now, I want to say, because most people out there, they know Del Curry now. They know Muggsy Bogues. And I've written about this before. I've spoken about it. I don't know if I've really talked about it on the pod, but I want to just tell us a little story. You know, I grew up in the rural South, but town of about 60,000. I would go to black parties with my friends. I would go to white parties. There were really very few integrated parties, even in the 80s. If the cops showed up out in the country to a bonfire where white kids are drinking, everybody just kind of is like, all right, well, we're busted. If at the black party, if the cops show up, everybody runs. Everybody runs because it's different. People, they're looking for people to arrest and take downtown that can't afford the bail, whose parents won't be at the jail. All of that stuff. I remember vividly being a 20-year-old rookie in the NBA and driving to practice, riding to practice with Del Curry and Muggsy Bogues. They were sitting up front. We're going to Hornets practice, probably speeding in a Mercedes, tinted windows. I'm in the back seat. The cops pull up and Del rolled the window down and the cop was heated right away. And I could see that this was fucked up and they were getting ready to get Del and Muggs out of the car when the cop looked in the back seat to me, recognized me and said, Rex. And I went, and he went, oh, he didn't know them, didn't recognize either one of them. And let us go on our way to practice. Yeah, it's just fucked up. And that people, and I think also there's an advantage to playing basketball. You grow up. If you don't take the time to know what's going on in the lives of your teammates, their families, know who their kids are, what their family history is, you're a bad teammate. And from playing as long as I did, one of the greatest joys for me was getting to know my teammates in that way and understand, because I had a very different upbringing, and not saying that it wasn't rough at times and stuff like that, but it wasn't rough, and it stays rough. So thank you guys. Etan, real quick. So much in the book. Got to talk about the cover though. Paying tribute to Huey Newton. Why? Huey Newton in the chair. Why?
Well, because, you know, Huey Newton in my first book, in my previous book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism, it was a tribute to Malcolm X. So I sat down and tried to imitate the pose, and that was my tribute to him. In this one, I did a tribute to Huey P. Newton. And so I remember when I was reading about the Panthers and the 10-point program, and my mother used to actually work with the Panthers in Harlem with their breakfast programs, and where they used to feed children before they went to school, and they have the different after school programs as well, and all the things that they were doing. So I started learning about how to stand up against police brutality, and where you're looking at the badge number, you're supposed to stand a certain number of feet away from a scene and you can witness what happened. So these are all things that I'm learning when I'm in high school, and just implementing it and learning more and more. So that's why it was such an honor to have, Fred Hampton Jr. Do the foreword. So knowing about Fred Hampton Jr.'s, everybody saw the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. And so it's crazy because I was watching it with my son, Malcolm, and he was like, wait, so when the police came in at the end, if you remember, the police came in at the end and pointed the gun at his fiance's stomach, that was Fred Hampton Jr. that was in there. Like, that's just amazing to me, Wow. And he asked me that, and he was like, that's who you did the forward for your book, right? And I was like, yeah. He was like, wow, and it's just, that it's a constant fight and a constant battle. And it's sometimes you can get a little bit discouraged because the battles that they were fighting in the 60s, we're kind of still fighting now in terms of police brutality, qualified immunity, where it's difficult to prosecute them. They're like at a 1%, prosecution rate. Like we get excited when there's one cop that gets, found guilty out of all the, it's just still the same struggle, but you have to keep fighting and you have to keep going. So that's what it's about.
Speaking of, since you brought up film, Raymond, and all of you really, but there's been so many movies, dramas, documentaries about your experience. Is there one that you think communicates your feeling the best? Like something that, like to me, the Ken Burns spoke to me. I've seen, I think everything, if it's possible, probably not, but I've read a lot and I like to take in visually. And I've seen a lot of stuff. And Ken Burns always, anything Ken Burns, like I didn't know what the Dust Bowl was, but I love the Dust, So he speaks to me the way he communicates artistically. So that really impacted me. Is there something that impacted you? Is something that you felt like, wow, they got it right?
Ken Burns, definitely, because, he did the doc with us. And up to Ken Burns coming in, you guys spoke about it earlier on the role of people, of different ethnic backgrounds and different nationalities. What do they play? And for us, Ken Burns, he was very important in our role because we were still receiving articles that were written about us all the way up to 2012 saying that we were still guilty of something. And it wasn't until Ken Burns came and he led his voice, which kind of gave us the credibility with white America, that really said, wait a minute, something's wrong here with the criminal justice system. So that, the doc definitely on one level, it was a wow moment because it finally gave us a voice. It finally let people see us as human beings and it gave us a voice and it was able to give us a platform. But the Ava DuVernay, When They See Us piece, for us, at this point, we had already beat the system. We went against the system. We were still, we were still doing a lot of work. And when this piece comes along, we're at a different level in our lives. We're grown now. We have a voice and we're ready to speak our truth. And with the Ava DuVernay piece, each member went deeply into his history. And there was a lot of stuff that the five of us didn't really know until we actually saw it together. And then it was like, it became wow moments all over again.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Etan, you have a section in the book about these stories on Christianity and the way it's become entangled with sort of American traditions. Mm-hmm. How do you rectify your Christianity with the way the religion has been used?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's, as a Christian, I wanted to go and to reach out to different Christians to speak about this. So I just reached out to Bishop Talbot Swan, who doesn't hold his tongue on anything. Mm-hmm. I spoke to Chris Broussard, who is a strong Christian and is willing to point out the hypocrisy of the white evangelicals, the Trump supporters who, say one thing on one hand, but then the complete opposite. That is not what Jesus would do on the other hand. I interviewed Steph Curry for that chapter, and he's talking about what Christianity means to him and what his faith means to him. And it was interesting because, in that section, he's talking about how he couldn't find it within himself to support Donald Trump because he goes against everything that he believes in as a Christian. And he was like, how could I support him? And he just started listing, he's like, it could be all day listing different things that Donald Trump, it embodies and what he's about and promotes. And so, but in that chapter, we went even back further, especially with Bishop Talbot Swan, into how, even from changing the image of Jesus to look like a white man and why it was done that way and where Christianity, is originated in the, ancient, Coptic, religion in Africa, but the change for American slavery and how it was used to justify slavery and implement slavery was strategically done. And we talk about it, and we talk about how, but a lot of times people say it, and it happened, but there is people that use religion in certain ways, and you can find those people in a lot of different religions. They're not really trying to be true to whatever that religion is. They're trying to see how they can use it to benefit themselves. And that's what happened here in this country with Christianity and slavery and the implementation of it all the way up until now, as you see with the white evangelicals. So it is a deep chapter, to say the least.
No question about it. We all, I think I hope we all try to look at life through other people's vantage points. And I want to ask you this, because it's been stuck with me for over a year now. I think about what happened a little over a year ago at the Capitol. And there's really not a day goes by that I think if there'd have been 100,000 black and brown folks charging the Capitol like that there would have been a lot more than, one dead civilian or a couple dead civilians out there. It would have been littered. And I can't get the thought out of my mind. You have a section in the book on January 6th. And I want to ask, what did that event and the way we're processing it a year later teach us about America? And what do you think?
So one of the people that I interviewed for that was, I interviewed Jamel Hill, and she really made the point of how this would look a lot differently if it was black people, the point that you made, and the white supremacy of Donald Trump, and why she called him a white supremacist when she was with ESPN. So she talked about that. But I interviewed Jake Tapper from CNN, and he spoke to the media. And this ties back into what happened with the Central Park Five. The media there's a reason why Malcolm X said that the media is the most powerful entity on earth, because it has the ability to shape people's opinions and how they view different things. And the media, and the way that they were describing January 6th, the same way they were describing the Central Park Five, was to sway the public to think one thing. So in January 6th, leading up to it, the media, and this is what Jake Tapper called out, that the media people who took part in this big lie that the Trump administration put together, that the election was somehow stolen from them, that drummed up all of this animosity and all this everything leading up to the January 6th, should be held responsible for the events that took place. Now, and similarity with the Central Park Five, all the media who drummed up and said, "Oh, they're guilty, they should be executed. These are animals." All the languages that they use, they should be held accountable as well, especially after the evidence proved that they were innocent. They didn't go back and retract. We were wrong. We apologized to their families. There's still no. And I asked Raymond this during the interview. I was like, so to this day, has Trump apologized to y'all? And he was like, no. And I was like, to this day, right now, he has still not apologized to you, even though all the evidence. So that it's really showing the power of the media and how people aren't being held accountable for their actions. And that's the parallel between the two.
Oh, it's so much. It's so much. I go back, Raymond, go back to your 14, what, I don't even know that you can do this. What, at that point, that kid's point in his life, what were your hopes and dreams? Can you ever even think about that?
I mean, for me, 14-year-old Raymond, I love to sketch. I love listening to hip hop music. Like, I was just a 14-year-old kid. There wasn't no real pressure on me to pick a profession, right? I had to be home by 9 o'clock. That was it. Get my homework done. If I wanted the latest sneakers, I had to have good grades. It was, I came from a middle class family, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on a 14-year-old kid, who was just trying to figure his way. Until that night when I'm in the police interrogation room, and that's the first time that I ever come across extremely large amount of pressure. That was my first experience with it. Yeah.
people think about it. I mean, it's one thing to say, but if you think about yourself at 14, I mean, I was just, maybe just stopped riding my bike, like 14 is so young. And it's true too, like Etan, it's like I grew early and you can get treated differently, just obviously by your looks, but 14 to think about this idyllic life. And then, in a matter of hours, wham, your entire life is changed literally like that from the innocence of 14 years old. I just can't comprehend any of it.
Yeah.
14.
And not even knowing what to do, like not even having an outlet, right? Because at this point, the articles are being written within the first 2 weeks. There's over 400 articles written about us, right? Calling us Wolfpack animals, urban terrorists. And so not even knowing what to do, because at that point, even Ken Burns said that. He said, in 1989, we were 5 of the most hated human beings on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so not even having an outlet to even understand, where do I go? Like, what do I do? How do I relieve the pressure? No, we just had to just handle it. I mean, we were in the newspaper every day for the next 2.5 years, until everybody was done with their trials. And that's just how it went. And so as a 14-year-old kid, I mean, people, sometimes I'm just happy that I made it out and I still have my faculties, saying that I can still smile, that even though it's a one day, it's one step at a time, and it's a day by day process. I'm blessed that I'm here to live that process and to still enjoy the moments, And so I don't know, how do we get here? I mean,
yeah,
it's what it is.
You're remarkable.
You called thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Etan, what did talking to retired police officers teach you about policing, if anything?
Right. So I interviewed quite a few retired police officers. One in particular, Officer Carlton Wicker. It specifically that works with the NYPD, that worked in New York, and we talked specifically about this case. And we talked about how it was almost like after having the talk with young people who were reading it, like an outline of, what to do and what not to do when you're stopped by the police. And it's something that they didn't have the privy to be able to even, somebody to teach them that. But my grandmother, I remember I got taught that at such a young age because my grandmother worked at Spofford. So she used to see so many different cases that would happen where, the kids wouldn't have done anything wrong, but the police, use whatever, like they ran first. So then that's what they get them on, even though they didn't do anything wrong for the police to even come up to them and accost them in the first place. You know what I mean? Or there's just certain things like no sudden movements. And these are things that, it's interesting. I just watched The Hate You Give with my baby Sierra. Fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. But in the beginning, the father is telling his daughter and his son having to talk about what to do when you're stopped by the police. You put your hands on the dashboard. You don't, no sudden movements. Even if they ask you to get your license, you don't just go ahead and go get it. You say, okay, I'm, going into my back pocket to reach for my license that you just asked me for. Is that okay? And you go very slow. So those are the things that Black families and brown families have to teach their kids from a young age. And it's just not a white experience. Like, white parents don't have to worry about that with their kids. It's just reality. But one of the things that I was able to show with this book, and more so the last book, was athletes telling that story. Because a lot of times people think athletes are in this protective bubble. We're like, no, I'm stopped by the police, I got to do that too. You know what I mean? Like they look at me. First of all, I'm 6'10". I'm a Black man. I got dreadlocks. Immediately they're afraid. So I have to go extra careful. And so in talking to the different police, going back to your original question, sorry, went off on a little tangent. But talking to the police, they recognize that there is a problem in the way that we police in this country. And they're telling of different ways that, they would like to see change happen. Now, a lot of times they're removed, the people who I interviewed, they're removed from the police department, and now they're working in different ways to be able to, either push for laws to be changed, a push for training to be changed, push for funding to be changed, funding going to and towards different directions of people who are actually trained to handle certain things, and then that funding being allocated to all policemen when they're not trained to handle it. You know what I mean?
That I'm glad you said that. There's a section in the book that details that defund the police, and a lot of mainstream Democrats, of course, saying, well, that cost us votes, terrible, blah blah blah. But you think it matters? Tell us why.
Well, it definitely matters. And it's I interviewed the brother of Corey McCoy, Willie McCoy, and his name, the brother I interviewed is named Corey McCoy. And his brother, if you don't remember, his brother was killed at a Taco Bell. He was asleep in the parking lot, and the person who was inside, the worker, called the police and said, we have someone who is asleep. Can you just go and check on them? That was the call. Not that he had a gun, not that there was a threat, not that there was any violence, that he's asleep, and can you check on him? And the police came, and they just unloaded into him. And they said they thought they saw a gun. There was no gun. You know what I mean? He had his phone in the cup holder or something like that. And, the point of interviewing him and telling the story and showing everything is going back to why the police don't need to be the ones who are called in a wellness check situation or a mental health check situation, because they'll tell you, and you hear it straight from the police that I interviewed, they're not trained to handle those situations. They're trained for if your training is to deal with everything with a hammer, then everything is going to look like a nail, and you're going to look to do like this with every single thing, and that's how they're trained. So why would you put them in schools? You know what I mean? Like elementary, middle school, high school kids why would you put them there? They call them resource officers. So why would you, put them so the same with Tatiana Jefferson, her family, that the neighbor called to check on their neighbor who was, the back door was open. And again, it was a wellness check. Make sure that they're okay. The police came and shot her through the window. Didn't even go in the window. She's in her house. But that's the way that they have. So that the point of those is Republicans have weaponized defund the police. Like they weaponize critical race theory, like certain terms, and it's weaponized and it's made to mean something else. But the problem is so many times Democrats have been like, okay, they won the PR battle, so now let's change this and let's worry about it. And then we start talking about something that doesn't even have anything to do. No, we can't accept their definition of it because it's not the true definition of what it is. Like, it's important to have people who are trained to deal with a certain situation be the ones who are called to deal with it. That's just common sense. But if you change it to something else, then it means something else. So that's what detailing that entire chapter, is really about.
But it is count me amongst those that the PR battle is important. Mm-hmm. And that is it's been weaponized and used as a dog whistle for people who aren't on this, talking about this all the time, and they just see a commercial, because I know they got commercials here for the governor's race. And the governor here, the Republican, at the end, it's like, and you have to stop the radical left socialists, all the dog whistles that want to defund the police. Yeah. And I get annoyed because it is so easily weaponized. If we had just said, and let me know if this would be wrong, restructure the police, because that's essentially what you're talking about. But to immediately people, middle America here, well, I don't want the police to go away. I don't want that. And it's used that way. And PR is important. So it annoys me that that's used because it's so easily weaponized. And you talk about, I don't want to change what they originally really meant. Right. But I just wish that more thought goes into it, because it's so easy to weaponize.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Middle America.
But here's the thing, though. And I interviewed Mark Lamont Hill in this chapter, and he talked about how no matter what we called it, that would be weaponized, no matter what it was. So whether we called it, restructuring the funding of the police, or you know what I mean, whatever the term is, then that would have been the thing that would be weaponized. So we can't worry so much about that, but just more, you know what I mean? But that's the games of politics, where they're like, okay, you're trying to appease this side to be able to come over here and do that, and nothing gets done. So that's the frustrating part. So throughout the book, all these different people who are, survivors of police brutality, family members of people who have been killed by the police, they're fighting to get things done, and they're running into roadblocks because of things that, like this, like the terminology of what both sides agree would be better for policing as a whole. Do you know what I mean? Like, but it becomes politicized and weaponized, and then nothing gets done, and that's the problem.
Right.
Fellas, I could talk to you guys all day. We got to come back and talk some more. I'd love to have you on again, Raymond, Etan. We'll talk some basketball next time. I want to say one thing before we go again, and it's about privilege. Josh and I will take people will watch this episode, or they'll post some shit online about us being race baiters or something. Mark my words. And what I've realized over time is that the people that say that shit are people that feel like they're being told on. It's not that what we're saying is incorrect. It's that they feel like we're telling on them. And they're old sort of old Republican bullshit. And I think it was FDR that said it's unanimous. Their hatred of me is unanimous. And I welcome their hatred, because it's that time. It's that time, guys. So I can't thank you enough for enlightening Josh and I, coming on here, helping us to spread an important word that hopefully in our lifetimes we'll see some significant progress on. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, I do want to say, because Etan, you touched on it, white people, there's a certain group of white people that need to hear it from white people. And from my perspective, usually it's with Rex, who talks about social injustice so much. And from where I'm sitting, like, of course, that's a winning topic to me. That's exactly what we want. But it's been enlightening for me to see the vitriol that's been pointed towards Rex. And I'm like, what? This isn't easy. Like, who would not think, oh, this is a great message? But it's amazing, the vitriol. And that's been enlightening to me. So thank all of you. Obviously, you guys for spreading it. Rex, thank you for using your platform that way too. And today, having them on, this has taught me stuff. So thank all of you so much.
Team game. Etan, Raymond, thanks so much, guys. We'll
real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's both of you favorite movie?
Ooh, on the spot. It's funny. All right. So I've watched probably Coach Carter with my son at least 50 times.
Okay.
At least 50 times.
All right.
Okay. I'll take it.
I'm gonna have to say Blue Chips.
Okay.
First time she's shot.
Blue Chips.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
All right, we've broken this last question into kind of like two, so it could be, if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive.
See, I can't pick with just one person.
I know, I understand that. I understand that.
It has to be like a few people.
So
all right.
Throw a couple.
Yeah. So first, of course, I would love to sit with Jesus. That's number one. Love to sit with Bob Marley. Love to sit with Malcolm X. Love to sit with Huey P. Newton.
Yeah.
Angela Davis. I mean, there's so many. Maya Angelou. I could go down the list, but yeah, that would be amazing. I can't even imagine sitting down with Angela Davis.
It's a tough question. It is.
Right.
Yeah. Only to pick one movie. It's apples and oranges. I get it. So I'm putting it on the spot. Raymond, who are you going to have dinner with?
Mine would be, we was very close to doing this and we couldn't because unfortunately he got sick and he passed away, but it was Nelson Mandela.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then lastly, for the front row center, to watch a concert with anyone dead or alive, front row center?
Bob Marley and Michael Jackson. I can't pick one. I can't do one.
Okay.
But it would be Bob Marley and Michael
Iman.
Jackson. Yeah. He said Iman.
Mine will have to be front row Jay-Z.
Let's go. Let's go.
Oh,
All right, fellas. Tthanks so much. It's been a blast.
It. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Team game.
Bless.
Team game.
Bless.
Later, fellas. Well, Josh, Etan Thomas, Raymond Santana.
That was fun. That was so enlightening. Plus, how about the I shot the sheriff? Come on. That's a great concert.
Man.
No, that was like, I mean, I've seen Raymond in so many things. Obviously, Etan, I'm a basketball fan, but see Raymond, and that's such a socially loaded and impactful time in American history. And to see him live here, I was kind of blown away because I've seen, the documentaries, the Ken Burns of it all. Thank you for putting that together and let me be a part of it.
Come on, bro. Thank you. I mean, I'm in awe of those guys. Etan as well. He's just so curious, and that's the thing that I find the most fascinating about being in sports, because and growing up and being so fortunate to play sports for a long time, is that yes, everybody that you are on a team with, they have passion to a certain standpoint for basketball. You have to, but a lot of the joy that I found was having teammates like Etan Thomas, and there are not a lot of them, but who are super passionate about something else and something. Wayman Tisdale, for instance. Wayman liked basketball, liked it. He loved playing that bass. He traveled with the bass on the road. That was his jam. You knew that's what he was going to do. Passed away early, but Etan, very much so. I just find it fascinating that those guys had full, terrific. Etan played 11 years in the league. And, really, I think this stuff was always more important, as it should have been. Mm-hmm. But I just, I'm so appreciative that they came on. And, look, I want to say this too, because we'll get a lot of people, I'm sure, that will talk about, oh, you guys hate the police. I don't hate the police. I know so many police officers, and we hear this, there are good police officers. I get it. But when you play on a bad team, even if you're a good player and you play on a bad team with a bunch of guys who act crazy, you're gonna be labeled as a bad player on a bad team. So I grew up with Glenn Skeens. He's the chief of police in Owensboro, Kentucky, one of the best guys in the world. Love him. Married my good friend Kelly Morris. She played high school basketball. We grew up together, same neighborhood. Love Glenn Skeens. It's got nothing to do with disliking the police. It's an unbelievably hard job. We just have to do better. That's all, right?
Yeah, I've got
sidetrack
that are police.
Yeah,
that I love and I certainly appreciate the job they do every day. But it's been enlightening through the last George Floyd period, where it's just enlightening that it was so systematic. And I didn't realize it, that it's a systematic race. It's something that's been built in that we just have to address and work on. And we can't work on it if it's not addressed. And
what I think about all of constantly with regard to George Floyd is that Thank goodness there were the video cameras were there. Thank goodness there were people there. But here's the other thing. The people that were there were predominantly Black and brown people. And I think about all the time, if you, Josh Hopkins, or me, Rex Chapman, had been there, standing right there, the outrage that I would have been showing, like, what are you doing? Hoping people would see, oh, look, that's me. That's Rex Chapman throwing a fit over there. And maybe the whole thing would have stopped. I know.
You're trying to go to sleep and you think about the George Floyd incident. Of it, as a human, you put yourself there. The first time I saw it, I was like, would I just tackle the policeman? This would have never happened. I'd have gone to jail. No one would have known that I just fucking saved the whole, I wouldn't have known. But like, would you have done it? You always put yourself
the fucked up thing is, I think if you and I would have run in there and tackled somebody, nobody would have shot us.
Yeah.
Nobody would have shot us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's what you learn. That's what we're learning.
But if Etan or Raymond had run in there and they're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I said to friends, it's the same way. Like my friend was like, what is with all of a sudden there's all these sharks and shark attacks. You see people. I said, no, it's not more sharks, stupid. It's cameras. Video. Yeah. So friends are like, wow, all of a sudden the police are just attacking a lot of Black people. I'm like, that's all we have cameras. It's more cameras, not more violence. It's always been there. The sharks have always been swimming under us. We just didn't have drones.
That's right. Well, it's not been much of a basketball segment. However, let's touch on a little basketball before we go. KD's out, a little bit hurt. The Nets are struggling up and down. The Phoenix Suns, however, are rolling.
48 the other night, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are rolling. That's cohesion. That's being together, and that's it's interesting to see them grow every year. Since they won out in the bubble, and then the next year makes the finals and damn near won that thing.
I know, and
you just see them stepping up.
Baby steps, and I think last year, obviously, you hope that it's a growing process. Everybody had to go through it and all that. What I'm hoping for right now, and I know a lot of players that aren't in all-star consideration. And many coaches are really looking forward to having several days off for the All-Star break. I'm hoping that the Suns continue to win, and Monty Williams and his staff are the All-Star coaches. That's what I'm really hoping, because I feel like that's another step for the team and the squad and those players trusting the staff. So anyway.
Why are the Bulls so good? Why are the Bulls so good, Rex, this year?
Oh man, players, and and Lonzo Ball. Lonzo is everybody talked about him being Jason Kidd-like coming out from the time you could watch. He's Jason Kidd-like. Don't get me wrong, he's not as good as Jason. They're different, but he's a dream to play with. All he wants to do is pass the ball. Zach LaVine can play the true two-guard spot, scorer spot now. And DeMar DeRozan is just, he's a grown man, and he's got it all figured out at this stage of his career. And then they've got a bunch of guys who can pass, that know how to play. Alex Caruso, we love that guy from the time he was in college. I'm happy to see what he does. They got a bunch of dogs who get after you. They'll play hard and fight.
And then lastly, let me ask you this: because it's turned so quickly, and is there a GM out there that today would take Zion over Ja? So GM.
I don't know. It's so that's a great question, Josh. And there probably are. Yeah, no, there probably are. But I saw our guy Stan Van Gundy said something the other day, and I thought it was pretty spot on. He was going over, all the people hating on Zion, and he had gone back over whatever it is. Let's say, if Zion should have played, what is it now? By now, 90 games or something, or no, he's missed more than that. At the same stage in his career, he's played more games than Joel Embiid did at the same stage of his career a few years ago.
That's the thing I would say. It's like,
they're young.
Embiid this. You know,
yeah,
he's stuck in this place where people are worried if he's going to Embiid or what's the Ohio State center that came out that couldn't come back.
Greg Oden.
Yeah, or Greg Oden. You know, which is the injury's going to go this way or this way? It's like he's in that exact medium point where he could come back and be a dominant all-star, or he could be Greg Oden.
Yeah. You know, it takes us to another really good point. So well done, Josh. And it's something that I say to you, you know it. We'll talk about guys at Kentucky who we love. You know, we want those guys to be 25 when they're 19, right? And we say it all. And people get down on the Kentucky players, or they'll get down on a Julius Randle playing in the NBA out in Los Angeles and then being bounced over the Pelicans. You got to always remember they'll be 25 someday. Yeah. You know, Malik Monk right now, you know, he's had a couple of tough years in Charlotte. Malik's 23 and he's just now starting to find his rhythm out in Los Angeles. He'll be 25 someday. And sometimes with talented guys like that, you just got to wait a little while.
Let me ask you finally, because talk is, because you've talked about like the moment that Steve Nash realized, I got to get my body right. I'm going to do this. Luka needs that moment, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You know, that's the concern. It's always been underlying concern. People are like, oh, they love him in Dallas, but they're a little concerned. He likes to get after a little bit. And how good would he be if he just brought the whole team and was disciplined, because he's so good.
Yeah. You know, I saw him warming up the other night and immediately I said, oh, he's a little fat. That's what I just saw. He looked a little pudgy. I know that they've acknowledged that he's a little heavy. And then at the end of that night, while he was pudgy and not in you could tell he's not in great rhythm. He had like 29, 13, and 8. He's a problem. He's sort of a throwback, a bit of a throwback who I think likes to get after it a little bit, go out at night. And he's probably never had to lift weights his whole life because he's been so big and strong. The thing with that is it will catch up with you at some point. My gut feeling is he's going to be just fine. He's, the kind of competitor / killer that he is. He's probably reveling right now. Charles used to do this, Barkley. Charles played half the time out of shape and busted you while doing it. You just hoped you didn't run into Charles late in the year while he was getting into playoff shape. Right. Where he had second and third and fourth efforts, going after things. Luka, he'll get there, I think.
And you just thought, is Luka 23? I mean, he's so young. Yeah. So this is sort of you talk about people's games, they work, and Malik, and they'll be 25 someday. Mentally, he will be 25 someday. He'll be like, all right, enough of this. I'll get after it, as soon as the season's over.
Yeah. The only risk with that, the big risk, you're not as good as you can be because you're not being as dedicated as you need to be. That's the big thing. That's the overriding thing. But he's I kind of lost the train of my thought. What was I talking about?
He's so fun to watch, but I'm bummed that he's not full Luka because I want to see it.
He's dirty. He's just so dirty. I love him.
He's filthy.
All right, buddy, we better run. Okay, next week we'll be back for episode 32. That was 31. We'll do it again this time next week here on the Rex Chapman Show with super cool Josh Hopkins, powered by basketballnews.com.